right?
Perfect. So
Okay.
no one catches my bloopers.
Yeah. All right. Now we should be live, and we might actually get a little bit of what we were talking about before in there. I don't know how this works. I'm an amateur YouTuber. I'm the wrong guy for this, but whatever. So, what's up, everyone? Today we are going to be talking about the AERS Elo system. It's an arm wrestling Elo rating system for all arm wrestlers, all bracket types. We'll touch a little bit more on that going forward. But today I'm here with Frank Callahan, who is the software engineer, software designer for everything on the back end of this Elo system. How you doing, Frank?
I'm doing good, Chance. I'm glad to be on some podcasts and videos, getting to share the light, answer any questions anyone has about how it all works and what is it and all that good stuff.
Perfect. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a soft launch, or I guess the hard launch, just a few days ago, right?
Yeah, we knew that we were going to get some mixed results initially, but we needed to get the website up to get the community engaged, so that way we can get promoters to send us all their results. And it worked like a charm. Out of nowhere, I think Corey Miller said there was like 10 plus promoters he hadn't heard from yet saying, what do I need to do to get my results sent to you? What do I need to do to get all the results a part of the AERS system? And that's exactly what we need. I think right now, Corey he just said the other day, about 100 tournaments backlogged, like ready to be processed.
That's
And
amazing.
so that will be the effort for the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. And speaking of Corey Miller, he's kind of the other half of the AERS Elo system. So do you want to touch a little bit on what Corey's part in all of this is?
Yeah. So the way this actually all worked, and Chance, you know a little bit of it already. I saw you on a podcast about a year ago now, about 9 months ago, and someone had said, would arm wrestling be better if there was an Elo? Because you were getting flamed for ranking somebody above somebody else or something like that. And you were saying that you're trying to be as unbiased as possible. You're doing the best you can. It's really hard sometimes. And you had said having an Elo system would be phenomenal, because then, you know, you have something that's completely unbiased. It's just based on performance, and you wouldn't have to, you know, go through what you're going through trying to maintain the in the hook rankings and stuff like that. That being said, this is not to replace in the hook. Like, those things can coexist. I think they both serve as great tools for the community.
And we can touch on the differences between the rankings and the ratings.
Yeah, to answer your question about Corey, I got in touch with you. I called Corey up, or I said, hey, if someone wanted to do this, or if someone had the, you know, want to create the Elo system for all of arm wrestling, who would you get them in touch with? You said Corey Miller. And I had 2 or 3 phone calls to Corey Miller. I did some beta stuff that night. I went ahead and set up a small little console app, like a pretend tournament. And I said, here's what it would look like if these guys win. Here's what the numbers are. And we did that back and forth for a couple of hours. Corey fell in love with it. He said he had been wanting to do something like this forever. He just, you know, didn't ever have the, you know, manpower to do something like this. And so with our powers combined, it's really become something. Because he has the Corey Flash bracketing system. So already he has a hand into all the promoters tournaments to get all the results. Corey himself pulls like every other month across the US. So he's just a part of, you know, he's in with all the promoters. So like, that's more than half the battle, is just getting all the data together. And we're still struggling with that now.
So Corey's biggest part in it, would you say, is getting the data in to your system?
Aggregating the data. I mean, he does more than just getting the data. There's a ton of cleaning that has to be done. You know, some tournaments, people submit brackets with only first names.
Right. So then you have to go back through and
so sometimes the names are spelled, or I mean, not sometimes, all the time names are misspelled. People send them paper brackets where they're literally written on sticky notes. You know, and he's handling that side of it, marshaling, you know, 100 plus tournaments worth of data. Like already I think I have the AERS app open. I can see we have almost 2,000 pullers in there right now.
Right.
That's 2,000 pullers that we had to like hand groom going through, making sure we had no, like we have misspellings in there right now, guaranteed. And so as we keep iterating and adding more and more tournaments, we need the community to give us feedback, because the list is getting so big, we can't possibly prune it and fix it ourselves until we create our own tooling to do it for us. But we wanted to get it launched and get it out there and get everybody involved as soon as possible.
Right. Which is amazing. I'm really excited for it. Obviously we've seen a little bit of positivity, we've seen a little bit of negativity, just like anything else on Facebook. But can you give everyone that doesn't know what an Elo system is, or what this system is in particular for arm wrestling, can you give a quick rundown on what it is and why it's needed?
Yeah. So I would start with an example of chess, or even any computer video game anyone's ever played. But to take a step back from that, it's just a score that, when given enough data, which could be just potentially 20 matches or so, you can come up with a rating between you and someone else that is a depiction of your chance to win, basically, is what it's supposed to do. So if you and I have the same score, that means it's a 50-50, like mathematically, right? And then if I beat you or you beat me, it's like +5, -5, or whatever numbers we would be using. And but of course, if the spread between us, like if your rating is higher than mine and I beat you, I earn more points for that. It's worth more. And granted, if you lose to me and you're higher than I am, then you'll lose more points, right? Balancing things out, saying, oh, this guy, he beat a higher level guy, he needs to earn more points. And what it's supposed to do is give the competition, or give it's an insight to the competition of how well people are performing in the arm wrestling community. I think that's what it's going to do the best. It's going to shine light on your local heroes, the guys who are pulling in their state tournaments all the time. They're doing really well. But even more than that, as people start competing more and more across state lines, you kind of get to see a different side of things, right? You don't just see the super match pros, or I say pros, but like the super match, top 5 super match guys in Texas, or sorry, in the US. You get to see these guys who maybe aren't doing super matches every month, but they're winning tournaments every month all across the country, right? Like, and I feel like that's an important statistic. Like, that's something that matters. That's something that indicates you're a good arm wrestler.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rating system itself is, I consider it a performance-based system where you're able to see how well individuals are performing based off of their peers.
Okay.
How well is an amateur doing against other amateurs, or how well a pro is doing against other pros. Granted, we do have a combined list that shows best guess of how an amateur competes against a pro as well. And we can hash all that out here coming soon, the rest of this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, of course, there's just so much information that we need to cover. How points work. If I'm 1,600 and I lose to someone 1,400, what's the fluctuation? There's a lot that we need to touch on. But you mentioned super matches, and so I wanted to ask you, comparing super match wins and tournament wins, how will super match results be implemented into the Elo system?
So right now they're currently weighted exactly the same. Now we've gone back and forth already, discussing, so should super matches be worth more? Should they be worth the same? People think, I have the idea like a super match win should be worth maybe a little bit more, because it's something you prepped for. It's completely fresh for fresh. There's no luck of the draw. But granted, most super matches already are, I think most people are doing best of 5s nowadays. So if you 3-0 somebody, and let's say they're 1,700 and you're 1,500, if you 3-0 them, they might still be rated higher than you, but it's going to be real close. Like, you took a ton of points and they lost a ton of points. Like, it's a big, like, when you just look at it raw, it's a big shift, right? Like, everything you gained, they lost. And so the more we look at it, and the more I'm thinking like, well, if someone's pulling good level super matches, right? If you're looking to pull someone, the next best guy on a regular basis, let's say you do it like 3 times a year, 4 times a year, people who are doing those super matches are going to get just as many points as those getting in tournaments. And so that's in recent limelight, like in recent study and recent looking at it. But granted, and this is something I want to tell the entire community, everything we have right now isn't set in stone at all. The way we're running the numbers, the way we're like the modifiers for the Elo system that has a K value. And so the K value is the max plus or difference or plus or minus for any match. Right now it's like, I think 28.
Okay.
And so that can change. Like right now, it only takes us like 2 minutes to recalculate everything in the database. So at any given time, as we get more and more data, if we need to, we'll do anything we need to on the Elo side of things, on the number side, to make it reflect the real world of arm wrestling. Right now, we're using almost just the most vanilla Elo system there is. There's no weights. There's no seating. There's no modifiers that adjust based off your score. Granted, we can do all of that. I can do all of that. But before I do, I want to get all the data, see what it looks like first, like see what all the ratings look like, and then make these adjustments coming forward. And like I said, it might take me 30 minutes to implement something, an hour to write the code or set it up. And then it takes us 2 or 3 minutes to reprocess everything. And then we can see what it looks like. And that's what Corey and I have been doing for months right now, like months.
Just tweaking settings and seeing how it adjusts.
On my local computer, not going live, like not on a public website or anything, but just rerunning them, saying, okay, what's it look like now? Okay, well, what's it look like this? Well, what happens? Because we want to make sure that when we go live and we get real results, it resembles what it would look like in the real world. Granted, we've been using probably about 20 or so test tournaments, which are real data, but just it's a 20 terms is relatively a small set of
sample
data.
Size.
Yeah. But I've been putting in like fake data too with it to see what it like. Well, what if Chance comes in, starts off at a 1500 and he beats Corey 6 times in a row? What happens to each of them? Like, let's see the actual change. And that's why we're at the Elo value right now of 28, I believe, the K value. And like, again, like as we get more and more data, subject to change.
Right. We have a couple of questions in the chat, so I just wanted to kind of knock those out, and then we can continue on. But that way we don't get too backlogged with questions. So, Jeremy Coleman asked, "Is the stats based on match wins only, or match wins with rounds won? Arm wrestler wins 3-2. Does the wins by the match loser count into the results?"
Does the wins by the match? Okay, I think I know what he's asking. And so I'll give 2 answers depending on the 2 versions of the question he might be asking. I won't just count that as 1 win. Like I don't just do the difference and count 1 win processed, right? I don't do that. What actually happens is you have a running, like when it's calculating, you have a running total of every match in your bracket. So if you win, you'll gain points and you carry those points into your next match. And if you lose, then based off that new score, you'll lose obviously more points if the guy was below you. And it's a running total through the matches. So I don't just take the difference at the end of all of it saying, oh, Chance won 5 times, lost 2 times. Let's do the math now. No, I do it match by match. You have a running, like your Elo is live, so to speak, while it's being calculated. And then I save the result at the end.
And he touched on it a little bit more here. He says, why I ask is a guy who wins 2 rounds against Levon or whomever, but loses the match, obviously showed rank higher than a guy that loses 3-0 to a puller. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And winning those 2 rounds off of Levon would give you probably the full, like that would be a full 228 curve. So that would be a full 28 plus 28 was that 56. And then Levon would drop those 56 points. And then if Levon beats you that 3rd round, well, he probably won't get much points for it all. He'll get like 1 point or less, because ideally Levon's rating is so high that him beating anyone who's too far below him, he won't get anything out of it, which kind of is a good thing, because think about I've heard some people's critiques are like, oh, well, every guy's local state champ who just beats everyone in the state is going to get this inflated Elo. And I'm like, only to a certain extent. And the second anyone from out of state comes and beats him, or the second he goes out of state and loses, it fixes itself again. So like these points are shared across the whole country as people compete and travel across the country. You do get these slight inflations, but they're only temporary.
And just real quick to give everyone an idea of point values. What do you start at to kind of give everyone an idea?
Yeah, so you start at 1,500 right now is the way
Okay.
The individual. So we've done it in two separate ways. We've done it where so you have an elo per arm, per weight, per division. So amateur, pro, or masters. Now that's actually kind of in the works. We're working on combining them more. We already have a combined version of amateur and pro. And so in the amateur and pro combined, the amateurs start off at a lower value. I think right now it's like 1,250 or something, or maybe 1,150. And the idea is what's the average odds that a average pro will be a average amateur? Probably about 100%, right? So 100% chance to win an elo, or the way we're calculating, I think it's around 500 points or so.
Okay.
I don't think we're doing the full 500. I think we're doing like a 95 chance to win. So that's why that happens. And granted, that may not actually resemble what two particular athletes really are, but we have to start somewhere, right? And as the data, like as we get more and more matches under their belt, that will shift quickly. If you're an amateur and you quickly become a pro, like within your first year or whatever, if you start beating pros, you'll climb right out of that amateur rating within, 2 or 3 tournaments if you are beating pros.
Right.
So yeah,
because you're going to get that full 28.
Yes. Yeah. You'll be getting, it's a bigger jump between you and the existing pros. So you'll be losing more. They'll be gaining less, or losing more. They'll be losing more. You'll be gaining more.
Right. Tommy Smith asked, is the logo going to be on tournament flyers? That way we know which ones count for elo.
So that's actually a really cool idea. What we want to do right now is, I think Corey and I, because I guess Tommy's the 4th or 5th person to ask this. Honestly, it seems almost like every tournament that is coming up will be supporting AERS. We want to maybe do a Facebook post, and we'll just keep a Facebook post bumped on the AERS page of the upcoming tournaments that are like 100% pre-committed to sending us their results. Probably people using Corey's system already. And so it's literally as easy as them sending him an Excel sheet. And then it takes, I think, Corey like 10 minutes to process that because he has that all set up. And now everyone doing paper brackets, we're still going to take those results. It just takes us a lot longer to get those in. Right.
So most tournaments, from what you've seen, which I believe to be true, is they're happy to share the results of the tournament. Why wouldn't they?
Why wouldn't they? I mean, it's only going to improve the sport. It's only going to improve how many people come out to your tournament, and it's going to make winning and losing a little bit more valuable than they already are, right? Like people already don't want to lose and they want to win. But now if you actually have a value that you can track, that the whole world can see, not an arbitrary chance beats so-and-so, but so-and-so, but that rock, paper, scissors game you get into all the time, it defeats all that, right? It's like actually a hard rating. And something I've told a lot of people is, even if you don't like the idea of the Elo system in arm wrestling, if you go to the website, you can simply use it as a wonderful catalog for all the matches and tournaments across North America. You can click on Chance's name, click on Frank's name, or whoever, and see, here's all the tournaments they competed at by weight class and division. Here's the people they arm wrestled against. Here's who they lost against. Like, I think that alone, even if we didn't even have Elo, is awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm a little bit of data nerd, so maybe I'm biased. But
no. It's amazing to be able to look back.
I think it changes the game.
It's amazing to be able to look back and see, okay, what happened in the last 2 years? What did this athlete do? Who beat him? Like, who did he beat? It's amazing. I'd like to knock out a couple more of these questions before we get back into it. Devin Loretz Pronator says, what if in super matches, each round counts as a tournament round? So if you 3-0 someone, it counts as if you win 3 tournament matches, or would that not work? Essentially, that's what it is at the moment, correct?
Yeah. So let me read that. Let me read the question. What if in super matches, each round counts as a tournament round? So in 3. Yeah. No, that's basically how it is. Yeah. So like if you 3-0 someone, in a super match, that's basically the same as you going 3-0 in a tournament, except in the tournament, you might be going against someone who's a different elo every time. So of course, results may vary, but yeah, the weight and everything there is the same way. So most tournaments, I think, depending on the size you win, like you go 4-0, 6-0, that gets you first place. And if you're doing a super match, a best of 5, or if you agree to do 5 out of, 5 rounds, regardless of best of 5. If you win 5 times, that's the same as pulling a tournament.
Right. So there you go. Arm Wrestling Boz says, is the plan to eventually implement other weight classes?
Oh, I see. So I imagine this might be someone who's lighter than 156.
He's not.
Or 154. He's not. Well, I don't know. So it's weird because we've had some people say, well, hey, I was looking and I saw in the nationals tournament, there's like, it said there was 18 people in my weight class, but that's not true. There was only 9 or something. And they're looking at the 156-pound weight class, or
154.
154. Yeah. And the reason is because we do a roundup. So if there's a 136-pound class and a 154, those will both be into the 154, because we're not keeping track. Like, we're only keeping track of the 154, 176, 198, 220, and so on. And so it's like a roundup rule. So if you have a 200-pound weight class at a tournament, we went back and forth, and this can change later. We can always make this change, but we were like, do we just count that towards the 198s? And they're like, well, but like, what's the cutoff? How much lenience do we give? And we are like, no, we really need to just roll that all into the 220s. And so again, that's something the community, more than 50% of people just hate the idea of that. And they think there should be a 2-pound lenience because Washington State does 202 every year or whatever. We can change it. I want the community's feedback 100%. I'm not making this just for myself or just for Corey or just for Chance. It is for the community. And so, whatever, but that was the best way. That was the way, the fairest and the best way we saw to do it.
I do feel, though, Frank, that if you keep it concrete, this is just my opinion, I can't speak for everyone. If you keep it concrete, all it's going to do is it's going to make promoters stick to the standard weight classes, which isn't a big deal.
Yeah. Aren't those just the same? I mean, I don't know. I feel like those are the standard weight classes, but depends on if you're from Europe or not.
Yeah. I mean, they are even in the WAF. The only difference is it would be every 5 kilos instead of every 10 kilos. Mm-hmm. So you would have 186, 187, 198, for example.
But a lot of promoters can't do that because they're only getting, 300 entries, and that means they'll have like
not even
per weight class. Oh yeah, so they're only getting like 3 people per weight class.
Right. So you end up having
for the athletes.
Right. Exactly. And I agree, and I think that this works. Maybe one day down the road, like you said, everything can constantly change. Matt King asked, is a 200 puller rating, and I think he means 198. If a 198 puller's rating going to be affected, plus or minus, if he pulls 220?
No, you have an individual. You have 2 individual elos.
So he would have an elo for 198, and he would have an elo for 220.
Yeah.
And winning in 220 doesn't affect 198.
No.
Right.
And why would it? Like, if anyone thinks it should, I'd love to hear their conversation. But it's just like you have a whole different level of performance on your right arm than you do on your left.
Okay, there you go. Texas Piranha with a $20 super chat. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Helps a lot. I showed Chris Lawson how to beat you, Frank. So when he smashed you, can thank you later.
Okay.
Yeah.
On
another note, how long did you work on the Elo system? Also, Chance, keep up the hard work and keep getting stronger, brother. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I can pull it up. I think I started in January 5th. I started February 8th was my first commit on code. That was the first night that I pushed code to GitHub and was working with Corey, like showing him the stuff. So it's been that long.
That sounds about right, because I remember I was in Sweden when you messaged me on Discord.
There you go.
And that was
January, we got started right away, dude.
Like,
I tell you, I got off the call, or I got on Discord or Facebook with you and got off that call and called Corey up like immediately, like either that night or the next day, and we were putting stuff together, both 2 feet in.
Which is amazing. Legendary Balkan asked, theoretically, what Elo rating would constitute entry into a pro category?
Yeah. So, that's such a good question. This is the beauty of it, guys. Imagine the sport of arm wrestling where you don't have amateur or pro. You have like a rating category, which is just based off of these guys' performances. So when you show up to a tournament, there's maybe 1 or 2 divisions, or 3 or 2 divisions where it's like 1,700 plus 7, and then 1,400 to 1,700, and then 1400 below. So you have like a novice, amateur, and pro. And that is based on past results. That's based on like current, up-to-date performances. So you don't have any of this. Well, this guy's been pulling for 2 years. He's pretty good, but he doesn't do too well in the pros yet. Blah, blah, like none of that. Not a problem anymore. You don't have people sandbagging. You don't have people who maybe are sticking around the pros or the amateurs too long, or you don't have people who are jumping too early and just getting blasted by these, high level athletes. Right now, it's hard to tell. The way I'm looking at it, just at my own computer, is I go to the amateur division where it's just amateurs, and I look at the top, and I can do this on my end, where I can just say, give me the top 3% of all the amateurs across all the classes. Now, filter by those who have, remove all of them who have less than 6 matches, because I don't want people who have only pulled 3 times and whatever. Like, I want solid data, right? Data that's backed by 12 plus matches, 3 or 4 tournaments. All right, 3 or 4 tournaments worth of data, and these guys are all your top 3% best performers. Probably these guys are the ones that should be looking to start pulling pro here soon. Mm-hmm. In fact, Balkan, I don't know if he knows this, but I messaged him probably several months ago when I was first running through with all my test data, and he was the #1 amateur in one of the weight classes by a good margin. And I called him and said, when you pull in pro, bro? Yeah. Because I was like, according to the data here, you have you're X amount of points higher than second place. So, and that might mean he goes to pro and gets blasted. He goes 1-2 or 0-2 for a couple of tournaments, depending on where he's at. But is it fair he goes into the amateur and just wins? He just gets first. Right. That's where I'm at right now here in Texas. I started pulling pro about 6 months ago, and I'm getting destroyed in the pro division, but I was winning in the amateurs. So I don't want to sandbag. I don't want to just be bringing home hardware that, so I want to pull with the pros, even if it means I lose.
So I guess that brings me to a question, which is, let's say you are a guy that's been pulling in amateurs. You're at the top of amateurs. Your Elo somewhere around 1400. When you enter a pro tournament, how is that affected Elo wise? Because typically a pro, if you're entering data for a pro that has not had data entered before, they start at 1500. Yep. So how does an amateur jumping into pro affect Elo? Is it just going to be the 28 swing per usual?
So this is we're getting into the nitty gritty right now. And I had a conversation with Bob Brown about this today. And I've been going back and forth with Corey for, I don't know, the last 6 weeks about this, trying to figure out what is the best way to transition the Elo from amateur and pro, how to combine them or how to do a transition. Right now, I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing. If I have any sort of amateur results for you, you're starting off at that modified 1200 value or whatever. And then if I have any pro results for you, then I average those together. And then I use that Elo as what's being displayed. Now, when you go and pull in the pro division, you'll be using your pro Elo. But the thing is, it's kind of like leaving your amateur Elo behind, which maybe that's okay, but maybe we should still make that count for something. And so it's something I haven't solved yet, perfectly. And talking to Bob today, maybe the idea here moving forward, and I don't know how long it would take me to do it or figure it out, is you have one Elo across all weight classes. And the way it would work is, and it's weird, so you would start off at a lower Elo in amateurs, and you'd carry that Elo into pro. And for a little while, if you're someone who leveled up really fast, maybe it's a little inaccurate. But the idea is since you're already so low, since you're starting off at 1200 and you're pulling against pros who are ideally between 15 to 1600, you'd be gaining those 25, 28 points or whatever it is every match, right? So you'd be leveling up really quickly. After 3 or 4 tournaments of winning, you're right there in the middle of the pack.
You would also be taking away 28 points from the pros.
And that's what they get for losing to a guy who was just amateurs.
Right. So I personally, I'm a fan of that, having it combined and having it. Well, you were at 1400 as an amateur, time to hop in pros. You be a guy 1600, 28 each way. And, next time don't lose to a guy who's just jumping out of amateurs.
And I was going to say, there's even more to it. We can make it to where, and someone asked me about this today, is have I looked into modifying the K value based off of their elo. This is something that's common across other sports and other like what should I say, communities that use elo, where people who are X-rated, people who are 1800 or more, like say a higher elo, their K value is less. So they lose and gain a less amount of points per round, kind of like buffering their elo on the high end, but guys who are lower have bigger swings. And what that's kind of nice about is people who are newer into the sport can get seeded quickly into their rating, right? Let's say you're 1500, but you're just some super strong guy. You don't have to wait 4 tournaments before you're somewhat rated. Maybe you start with an inflated K value, say it's at 50, something crazy. And now you win 3 tournaments. That's like 250, 350 points. Hypothetically, right? And now you're seated, but now your K value goes down. It decreases as you get closer to the top. A lot of sport, or not sports, but like a lot of games and communities that use elo do something like that. And again, it's something we could totally implement if it makes sense, if the data is modeled, respectfully to that. And
which I think does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
For example, if we have a guy like Zauer, right, the guy that just won the Russian tournament, maybe you paid attention. Yeah. So Vitaly Laletin, if we had all data, let's say Vitaly Laletin is ranked or rated as the second puller, and Zauer, who is way, way, way below 200.
Sure.
And now he beats Vitaly. I think he should have more upswing than Vitaly does downswing.
Exactly. Yeah. But the thing is it doesn't necessarily mean they swap, right?
No,
it's not a cardinal ranking. Like Magnus Carlsen, who's the #1 chess player in the world right now, loses all the time in chess. Not all the time, but he loses. That doesn't mean someone automatically takes his spot.
Right.
It means like you don't have to beat him just once to prove you're better than he is. That's not how it works. And I think it's kind of, in arm wrestling, we see things a little differently. Well, I beat that guy last week. I'm better than he is. I'm like, well, did he have a wrong day? How do you do versus your peer? Like, how do you each do versus your peer group?
Right.
And who's proven it? If you're showing up to a tournament once a year and winning, but that's it, I would say your overall performance for the year is not spectacular compared to a guy who's showing up to tournaments every month and getting second place.
Right.
To me, that's more impressive.
Right.
I'm sure there's people out there who
consistency and data matters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Texas Piranha, $9.99 super chat. Gotta go, guys. But glad y'all are talking about this. He corrected himself.
Oh, I see.
Frank, please go over the overall objective of the Elo system, because I think a lot of people have misconceptions about it.
That's open-ended. What's he mean? The overall objective, I would say there's no real objective. The objective is to be subjective, right? Did I say that right? Yeah, we want just a rating system that's not biased, that, and kind of solves the whole rock, paper, scissors thing that happens all the time in arm wrestling, right? Will this solve the, who's better between, Chance, Derek, Corey, like that little circle there? No, like
don't bring that up again.
Oh, yeah. But what I'm saying is, people talk about that and they're like, well, this guy did this, and it's not about that. It's literally about like, well, let's just look at the data. Chance has pulled these people with these ratings and he's done this well, and Corey's done this well, and Derek's done this well. And now we can literally look at, on average, who's beating the better people, and then therefore who has the best score. Now, I'm not saying that means whoever has the higher rating can beat the other guy. That's not what it's for. It's just about who is performing the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Texas Piranha says, okay, people think it's just being active will make you higher.
Not if you're bad at arm wrestling.
I mean, to a certain degree, if you are just winning local tournaments, let's say you have 6 tournaments a year and you're winning those, the competition might not be great.
Yeah.
I would imagine you're going to get a decent elo, but someone who's traveling and beating higher elo opponents, they're going to go up much quicker.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. I would rather pull the top 3 guys, with the highest rating just 3 times a year and beat them than have to go to every local watermelon tournament across the country and try to beat, all the low level guys. Cause you're only getting, let's say it's a really low level, you get 20 points total at the end of the tournament.
Right.
Because, you didn't, or less, depending on how high your score already is. Or you can show up and arm wrestle Corey Miller, Jeff Hale, and Devin Bear and get tons of points. Right.
Right. Right. So to a certain degree, it'll probably inflate you from the 1500, I would imagine, up to maybe 1600, something like that. But climbing past that will be difficult because as you're beating everyone,
exactly,
their rating is lowered and yours is higher. So you're going to stop gaining.
It literally balances itself out.
Yeah. Yeah. Matt King asked, is there a loss factor for those who are inactive?
Loss factor. Oh, I see. Like an inactivity penalty.
You start decaying.
Yes, decaying. Yeah, an inactivity. So actually, that's so funny because that was talked about before I even wrote a line of code. I think it was like a part of the very first conversation we had was like, oh, and for people who haven't arm wrestled for over 6 months, we can hit them with like a 3% or 1%, and maybe we don't even change it on the back end. It's just for display. So when they become active again, they get those points back. Or some, we talked about all sorts of different variations of that. It's currently not implemented yet. It totally could be, but how would you do it? Like who gets to say how long is too long of not pulling, right? Things come up, things happen, is it every 3 months?
I'll tell you, Frank, in both the hook rankings and the US rankings, from what I understand, it's after 1 year. After 1 year, you're removed. Now, I think after 1 year, decaying should start. So, for example, if you have not pulled 1 year, every week or every month or every X amount of time, you lose this much % of your ELO until you become active, and then that resets it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so would you say it resets it as in you gain back the points you lost while you're inactive? No, it just puts you back on the board and you stop losing ELO.
Exactly.
Right. It's another 1 year before you lose more.
Correct.
Get it? Yeah. Yeah. And that's totally possible. But until we have enough data where I can start modeling it, I could literally run the numbers and see, okay, what happened to Chance? Chance started here. He didn't pull for 2 years. What's it look like with a 6% hit? Yada, yada, yada. Because I want it to be fair-ish. I want it to be reasonable. I don't want someone to just disintegrate, but I also don't want people to be like, oh, 10 points. I don't really care.
Well, you also don't want someone climbing to the top and then quitting arm wrestling. They haven't pulled in 5 years. They're still ranked second.
It's weird though, because there's people I feel like already, and not to get too defensive, but attacking the idea of like, well, so-and-so won the last 3 tournaments from 2015 through 2018. And I'm like, what's he doing today? Is he any good? Like, where's he at? We don't have any data for him yet. And they're like, well, he's an OG. He's one of the best. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I can only deal with the data I got. And right now we have data back to 2017, which I think is plenty far. I think anything older than that may not be an accurate picture of what's happening. It's a little less relevant than what's happening today.
But if you had a decay factor and you were able to implement that from 2017,
I would do it in a heartbeat.
I think it becomes a lot more relevant.
And because maybe
if that guy from 2017 has been active until 2022, then it is relevant information because you have a lot more data on him. But if I win in 2017 and then I don't do anything until 2022, well, then that data is really not important. That's just my opinion. Marius Gate says ELO loss makes no sense. Next time you compete, if you are worse than before, you will just lose your matches to lower level guys and lose a lot of points. They should just be marked as inactive, but not lose ELO.
Yeah. And that's something, I could just easily do too. Just show that person, they don't show up on the list anymore. Like they still maintain everything, but it's kind of like, what's Facebook do? Shadow ban? Yeah. You're shadow banned from the ratings list. So then people can't, but you can still look that person up and see them and whatever, but they just won't show up in the list.
Yeah. Now, Arm Wrestling Boss says in League of Legends, the higher your rank, the faster you decay until a point where decaying stops could be used. And I like that idea. Maybe you stop decaying at 1500 or whatever.
We had that. So I'll tell you what Corey's original idea is, and nobody lose their mind. I think it was like 3 months. Every 3 months you lose 2% up to 8%. And then after that, you lose nothing, but you get removed from the list. So 3 months, you lose 2%, 3 more months, you lose 2%, all the way up to a year, which would be a full 8% loss. And then you're removed from the list. That was one of the ideas. We haven't, obviously, like I said, we haven't implemented anything for it.
Do you have access to implement any sort of decay system that's not on the live website, so you can play around and see how it affects things?
Yeah, I have everything up and running on my local machine, like a
Yeah,
completely
I
separate
mean,
thing.
you should mess around with it, but like I said, the standard is 1 year, and
Mhm.
that's when you're removed. Maybe it's 1 year and you start decaying monthly, weekly, whatever it is, but it has to be within reason. And I do like the idea of maybe if you've been inactive for a year or so, then you can be removed at that point. That way, the data is a little bit more accurate. But there's a lot of information. There's a lot of data, and there's a lot of options on adjusting how decay works, how your K value is, having buffer zones. There's a lot of information there. So
I just posted the link in the chat too. I realized it wasn't on your description, so in case anyone
I don't
joins
think I
in,
did post the link on the chat.
it did or didn't? It didn't. I just posted. Maybe it needs to take a second.
Yeah, maybe. Send me the link on. Actually, I have it here.
Yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and in case anyone shows up and they have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And why don't this is a good time. Why don't you go ahead and pull it up? You can screen share and go over some of the features and what the website looks like.
Sure thing.
And I just posted the link because your link didn't come through.
Huh. All right. Well, then tell me, does this look good? Can you all
Yes.
see the screen?
Looks great.
So again, everything's subject to change. This is literally round one of AERS. We did make some changes today. I don't know if anyone's trying to use the app, but if they were between the hours of like 6 to 7 o'clock, it was down. But it's up right now. We have some font changes. There's better mobile responsiveness now. So if you pull this up on your phone, the screen's not sliding around or anything like that. And let me open this. These brackets here are going to be, they fit the screen better. And when you resize your screen, that everything's better. I don't know what people know about like mobile responsiveness and websites, but promise this is much better than what it was a day ago. So this is the first screen you come to. Well, there's AERS, this the home page, which goes ahead and shows you. Let me hit home. This shows how many athletes we currently have in the system, as well as how many tournaments we've processed. And that number will be going up over the couple of weeks so people can see that we're actually adding to it. And, I think that's a great metric to look at. So you can either hit C standings or hit classes up here. And when you load the classes, we just start off right to left, heaviest to lightest. If I wanted to, you can click on anyone here in the list. Like if I want to click John Berzink, maybe we can see, he has a moderate elo, but he's only pulled one tournament. We only have one tournament worth of data for him. Yeah. So the John Berzink Cup in 2021. And if you click it, you can see, it looks like he went 5-0 and he beat Cody Merritt 3 times, Robert Fowler, and I'm not sure how to say this guy's name, but Cody. And it was in a class size of 11. So that's pretty cool, right? Like you get to see who he beat. And if you're curious about who any of these people are, well, then you can click them. So here's Cody. And we have his individual ratings for all the divisions and all the left and right that he's pulled in. So you see he has some master classes in here. So right now we're actually working on probably combining.
Hey, I think you might have a data issue there. I don't think Cody Merritt has ever made 242 pounds.
Really? Let's see.
Just my guess. 2019, maybe I'm wrong, but
there you go.
Okay, I take it back. I don't know about 2019, but
There
Cody's a big boy,
Yeah. He is. He's huge.
But anyways, continue.
No. So right now we're kind of figuring out like should masters and pro kind of be the same thing? Because like I said, we're trying to figure out the formula for combining amateurs and pros. It's tricky though because Elo is based off your performance with your peers, and amateurs aren't pulling pros, right? And pros aren't pulling amateurs. But if we set the right starting values, and the idea is that amateurs will eventually pull pros, then maybe it works. And again, all subject to change. We're trying to figure this out as we go. The point right now is we get as much data as possible so we can create the best model.
Right.
Obviously Cody Merritt's, I think, the best in the country left-handed, and that's shows right here. If we click it, here's all the tournaments we have for Cody Merritt left-handed. It's pretty awesome. If we look at the John Brezink Cup, the one we were just looking at for John Brezink, now we're looking at it from Cody's standpoint, and we can see he went 5-0 left-handed. So I think his loss was to John Wright, of course. And so we can see here are the people he beat in his class of set 7, Robert Fowler, Cody, and Joe. So this is like the data catalog of it all. I think this is honestly cooler than Elo itself, because you just have a historical record of all the matches. If anyone ever came to me and says, hey, do you want a super match so-and-so? I don't have to go find footage. I don't have to find them on Facebook and this and that. I can just go hit the pullers list right here and search their name. So if I want, I can type in Frank Callahan, right? And I'm in there twice. I have no idea. Oh, because someone misspelled my name. So these are the data errors we're trying to fix. Probably from Washington State or something. I don't know. But click on the name, and then here's, my excellent performance in the pro division. I think it only has IFA nationals in there right now. But yeah, like this alone is just one of the best parts of all of this. And as the data grows, imagine, I have 20 tournaments worth of data for just me in here. You'll be able to literally track my performance over time. And that's all to come. I'm going to have another stats page that literally has your Elo over time and at the tournaments that you pulled at.
Which is amazing to have. And just to let you know, Arm Wrestling Boss says Cody won the super heavyweight WAF title in 2019. So he definitely was not 242. But this is just the kinks that have to be worked out. There's a lot of data to be processed here, and errors are bound to happen, but that's why you have people behind it like yourself and Corey to fix
I'll send it to Corey, and he'll look at it and find out what happened here. It may I honestly don't know. If he wasn't really in this weight class, then the data was entered wrong. And if that's the case, then we can get it fixed. But yeah, that's a part of it. And we know it's bound to happen. Like we saw my name was misspelled. That's pretty funny. But we have over 1,900 and plus athletes in here. So it's just a part of it. It's just too much data, so kind of segue into what's maybe a sneak peek of what's to come is, and I would love the chat or the community to let me know what they think about this. How does the community feel about signing up for tournaments online or on an app? And that way you're typing your name in, or you're selecting your name from a drop down list, right? A pre-populated list, because you're already in the system. We don't have these kind of errors anymore. You go to a tournament like Fairy Tale Land, just tell me if this is a thing. You show up to a tournament, you're weighing in, they say sign in. You take out your phone, you scan a barcode that's on the table, it pulls up that tournament. It says, this is the John Brezink Cup 2023, and you type in your name and you select the weight class and arm you want to pull on, and then you go over and you weigh in, and then that data is now on the promoter system or whatever, and they put in your weight, do all the things, set up the brackets, and now that data, should ideally be perfect. We'll still need to spot check it and still need to fix things as we go, which we expect the community to help with. But is that too much process? Do the athletes feel like that's too much? Because there's so many guys who just show up the day of the tournament. The tournament's 5 minutes from starting. They go over and they tap on Corey's shoulders like, hey man, I just signed up. Can you throw me in the 220s? Because then that won't be a thing anymore. We could still do it, but it's like, where does the relaxedness and the strictness begin? Because any other sport in the world, you cannot show up an hour before and compete.
Right.
I mean, on you know what I'm saying? Is arm wrestling ready as a whole for this sort of standard, for this sort of process?
I don't think that process is too much more than what we have to do now, which is do the same thing, but on paper. If there was a way for me to scan a QR code and it already has pre-populated most of my information, and all I have to do is weigh in and the promoter types in my weight, that keeps it simpler in my eyes. And it's something that will take time, I'm sure, to get used to, but it's something that I think would be amazing for the sport, especially because it helps on your end to keep the data as accurate as possible.
Yeah, it's interesting. Not everybody is super technically inclined in the sport, right? Like there's a lot of promoters who are not, Corey has problems just showing them Excel. and I am there thinking, well, could I make something that is simpler than Excel? And I talk to Corey about it all the time. He's the mastermind of creating brackets, creating a bracketing system. So I'm like, could I make a desktop app that rivals that and, pulls from a database, right? And has like my name spelled correctly. And then so they can just select me to say, hey, are you Frank Callahan or are you athlete FC123? And I say, yeah, that's my athlete ID. And they go, okay, cool. And now permanently fixed. No more data errors.
And Frank, I'm sure that not all promoters are going to be willing to do this, but for the promoters that are willing to do this, they should. If that is something that's possible, if it's easy enough for them just to implement this system that you're designing, why wouldn't they? Of course, depending, I don't know if you plan to charge for it or anything like that, but assuming that it's accessible, why wouldn't it be used? For someone like myself, who's going to be running Florida Arm Wrestling League with a couple other guys, it's very simple. If you said, yeah, Chance, just log into the website, create your tournament, and as people are signing up, have them scan a QR code, and it's basically automated from there, I would say no problem. That's perfect. Like you mentioned, there are some promoters that can't even use Excel, so sticking to paper brackets and texting a picture might be the best that we can do with them. But moving forward, the more promoters that do it, I think the better it is for not only the puller, but the promoter as well.
I'm seeing some comments here. I absolutely love the system and I hate the name. Hey man, don't shoot the messenger. I see another one says, if we arm wrestle the creator, do we get bonus points? No, according to my score, you wouldn't get too much from that.
Unless they're a brand new amateur.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. If you're a brand new amateur, then for sure. And we can look at what my combined is, because I think I do have some amateur results in there. Unfortunately, all of the Texas results from last year where, I did good are all on destroyed laptops, apparently. I kid you not. So we don't have a lot in there. Let me just type in, let's see the Frank Callahan again. Oh, wait, how would I do it? No, I see. So we don't have a way to search the class yet. So that's kind of something maybe we can improve. So if you click here, so this is the combined classes. So let's just see what my, and we call it open and not pro because it's open because it's amateur and pro combined. It's open, not just open like what you see on a tournament. And again, maybe we can come up with better naming later. I want to look for my open right. I'm probably somewhere down here. Well,
keep scrolling. You're way farther down.
There I am. Woo. 1472. Hey, that's not too shabby. 106, whatever.
Hey, you're almost a beginner pro.
Yeah. Hey, what do you know?
Which is basically where you fit in anyway.
Which is pretty on the money. And it's only going to get better, right? As I pull more and more pro athletes, right? Or whatever. Either I'll lose or I'll win, and that will get adjusted accordingly. Like I look at I personally, so far for my own endeavors, I don't look at the position or the rating. I'm looking at my win losses and in what categories they are, and overall right now I'm like, I think the data here has me at like 4 and 8 or something. Right. And it's just because it doesn't have a lot of data for me yet. It only has like 2 or 3 tournaments, and it only has the more recent pro tournaments where I'm not winning as much. Maybe if I get some amateur stuff, maybe it does boost my elo up a little bit. I don't know. Right. But I'm fine with that. Like I said, kind of a data buff, I'm so excited to just have all these results. If you look at some of the people who are here at the top, AJ, Brent, Caleb, Joe, Mike, like these are all people that we know maybe are not number 1, 2, 3, and 4, but they are people who are pulling frequently and doing really well. Like AJ, we have crazy amount of results for this guy. I think dating back to 2017, I don't even know like what weight class he's pulled in the most. Like, look at that. So of course, so again, his elo is going to be a little bit higher because we have more data to reflect that, but it's not just data. It's not like he's just going 0-2 in these tournaments. He's winning them. He doesn't win the John Brzenk one, but here you go. He won Hawthorne. He won Wyoming State. He won that one too. Right. So his high elo is reflective upon him winning like 4 tournaments and then doing well in another 3. Right. And that's what this is about. It's how well you are performing. And the more data we have that reflects you performing well, then of course.
Yeah. You just need to get some more Chance Shaw data in there so I can see my name. That would be nice.
I'll get right on it. I mean, you already know that we're not going to get these last Florida State tournament brackets.
You're not going to get the King of Florida brackets in there?
Are they?
I can't just send you circles and stars and have it sorted out. No, of course not.
I wish. I mean, we want like, man, state tournaments are the best, right? Because it brings out the best people. And so those to me, you know, mean a lot. Like the bigger the tournament, the better it is for the system.
Yeah, it was a really good tournament here in Florida. It was 234 entries, which last year I think had like 140. So it was pretty big for us. Matt King says that the ID linked with a name is a must. Eventually there's going to be duplicate names.
Yes,
agree.
100%. That was like one of the biggest hurdles initially doing this. I told Corey for a little while, I was like, I can't do it without the name thing, dude. Like, there's no way. There's going to be too many duplicates. And he was like, listen, Frank, we don't have a choice. And I was like, we don't, like, we can't just tell these people to go sign up, or I can't just give them an ID and say, hey, when you go to the next tournament, use this. And he's like, Frank, I can barely get these people to, you know, sign up and do things like the day of or this and that. Like, it's, and I get it. Like, I hear from my friends all the time. They're like, yeah, I wasn't going to pull in the 242s. I just showed up and, you know, like right before the tournament, I threw my right arm in there too, just for the heck of it. And I'm like, you wouldn't be able, I mean, you'd still maybe get away with stuff like that, but it would be a hindrance, right? Like the person running the tournament is going to say, go scan that barcode over there. Now sign up, and I'm going to have to, you know, reset up this bracket because of you. Right. We can't just throw you in we can't just draw another line out on a piece of paper and say, yeah, we'll throw you in the next winner's bracket. Right. Like it's more formal than that, which I think is the right, like as a step in the right direction to bring, you know, North American arm wrestling or arm wrestling in general into more like a less of a bar sport and more of like an Olympic sport.
And I agree. I think it is a step in the right direction. The more structure that arm wrestling has and arm wrestling tournaments have, the more official and the more reputable they are. If you can go to your local bar and give a promoter $25, $30, whatever, and have your name thrown in with the pros, it's just not that reputable, in my opinion. And the more it's like, okay, sign in with your login, use your ID, weigh in, whatever. Put all the information in a structured place. I think the more it's like that, the better it is. It's just going to take time to get people there, but you know, luckily Corey Miller runs a ton of events. Like I said, here in Florida Arm Wrestling League, we're willing to do it as well, and so I think others will follow suit.
I was just thinking another part of the whole amateur pro thing, and then not knowing someone who's coming to another state. Say you're running Florida State, and some guy shows up from out of town and they're like, oh, I want to pull amateur. And you're looking at them. You're like, you sure? And you're like, yeah. But then now when you start typing their name in and you go, hey, says here, you're like 12-1 in the amateurs over the last year and a half. You sure you want to pro? You sure you don't want me to put you in the pro division? You have that data. You have it right there in front of you. You can just stop, you know, and I know, like I've heard the story. Well, most promoters don't care, Frank. They just want the money. They'll let them pull. They'll say pull amateurs in pro because they want that $30 an arm, left and right, and 2 weight classes and 2 divisions, right? Because that just adds up. That's $200 at the end of the day or whatever. And, you know, that's what it's all about. But like if I was running a tournament, I wouldn't want me pulling in the amateurs. Like that's not fair.
We don't allow it at all. Once someone has won an amateur event in Florida, we say, too bad, you got to pull pro now.
That's awesome. And Texas is on that same card right now. They'll just come tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, you've been doing really good lately, man. Like, so next tournament pro.
Like, no. We're a lot more straightforward than that. We're like, no, you're kicked out. You got to pull pro or don't pull.
Yeah.
I mean, because
that's how it should be.
Yes. As a promoter, getting a few extra bucks. Yeah. You know, it helps, but at the end of the day, it's about providing arm wrestlers a fair place to compete and if there's a guy who's been winning amateurs for the last 3-4 years and just camping out there and sandbagging, that's not fair to a guy that's coming along and you're scaring away new competition.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know for sure, but I've heard rumors that like in the California world that they have, there's an amateur guy who's won it like 10 years in a row and stuff like that.
Yeah. Why do you win amateur world championships more than once?
I don't know, man, but hopefully, and again, I don't know who runs that, and maybe it's not even California. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong place. But
it is California.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, and I'm not trying to put anyone on blast, but like to me, that's not good for the sport, because now if I show up and I am a real amateur, I know I'm fighting for second place at best, and that's hurts people's, intuition of like wanting to be. It deregulates the sport basically.
Yeah. But there's probably a reason that event does not have any steam behind it anymore. It used to have a lot more, but no one really cares about that event anymore. No offense to that event. It's just the way it is. If the same guy wins every year, people are going to stop caring. Devin Loret's Pronator asks, will the Grinder Gym tournament from San Diego be participating in the system? If Dave Depew sends the information to Frank or Corey, I'm sure it will be. Yeah,
for sure. And he can.
You want to go ahead and stop screen sharing here?
Oh, sure. I can turn it off.
Yeah. Unless you had anything else to show.
No.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here shortly.
Yeah. Any upcoming tournaments, literally just message your promoter, be like, hey, I want my results to count to the AERS system. Have you talked to Frank or Corey yet about getting the getting the data sent to them, making sure you write full names on the brackets, don't use initials, and making sure you do have some form of who beat who, so we can keep track of that. And everybody, I encourage you to go check out the page if you haven't already. The about kind of explains, kind of everything we went over. We have a kind of an example here with numbers. We have one without numbers. There's a web page, like just a dedicated Elo page that I just linked in there. And we have acknowledgements of everybody who has worked on this and what their role is. So I appreciate Chance for kind of bringing on, spreading the word, being a promoter. You're a part of the innovation of the sport. And so I love it. And as far as the community goes, I want all of the suggestions, good or bad. Like, I'll just hear it out. I can't say I'm going to do everything, but I want to know all the ideas. Like, what does the community want? I think they would love to see a chart, tournaments and Elo over time. Maybe a chart where you can select 2 athletes and see their Elo over time, and you can compare people. Like, I think that's where, do people want to see them combined, or do they just say, have an amateur, have a pro, that's it? I only want to see my Elo combined. I only want to see a pro Elo when I'm pulling with the pros. I don't care to see it combined, or having one and then not ever having amateur pro again. Like, you show up to tournaments and you're signing up for the 1600 plus division. You know what I mean? And it could revolutionize the sport.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely a lot to it. And you're going to have to get feedback from the community, and you're going to have to work out the kinks, and you're going to have to implement new things. But it's amazing that you, Frank, are able to code all of this, and you and Corey are able to work hand in hand to make arm wrestling Elo a reality, because people have been talking about it a long, long time. And there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of information, I'm sure, that we didn't have a chance to go over now. If it's okay with you, Frank, I'd like to maybe go live again next week.
Yeah, sure. And maybe that gives the community enough time to simmer on it. Like I said, since we went live earlier this week, we've been fielding questions in our DMs and on the page and across Facebook nonstop. Yeah. And good and bad. We've had some not so positive feedback, and we've tried to address that the best we can. We have the other 95% of the community saying, wow, this is so cool. This is what we've always needed. Look at me. I'm number, 28 right now, because, they won 2 tournaments, they won IFA nationals and they won something else. And it's like, yeah, you're probably really good. You're probably not number 22, but
right.
Like,
it at least gives them something.
Exactly. It's cool. Yeah. It's cool to see your name up there. It's cool to be able to click your name and see all your matches. And I really hope people find that as valuable as I do and as Corey does.
Yeah, and I'm sure they do. So, Frank, thank you for coming on. What I'll do, Frank, is I will put on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube a place to submit questions over the next week. And then we can gather those questions, go over them live if you'd like to in a week or so.
Yeah. And if anyone in the meantime has something that is itching them tonight or throughout the week, they can always message the AERS page. And either Corey and I are both admins, and we'll both reply probably within minutes.
Okay, perfect. What is the best way for people to ask questions? Facebook page. So if you want to ask questions for this live event that I'm going to do with Frank next week, the easiest place to ask questions is going to be through me directly. So Instagram at Chance Shaw, you can DM me questions. You can message me on Facebook, Chance Shaw, or I'm also going to have a community post right after this event where you can just comment a question. Also, if you want, you can comment questions below this video as well after it is posted. So there, basically reach out to me on any social media. Frank, if you'd like, you can accept questions as well. You can have those planned and send them over to me, and we can go over those as well.
I was going to say, Chance, if you share this on your Facebook and just as a post, and people want to post on the questions there, I can just fill them all there. And that way it's all on your page. You have a bit more reach than the AERS page does right now. And no problem giving you the limelight to get all that data or, all those questions on your page.
Yeah. I want you and Corey to be able to answer all the questions that the community has and get feedback so you can adjust it accordingly. But I won't take up any more of your time. We've been live for over an hour now. So thanks again, Frank. And thank you to everyone who was asking questions. If you have any more, like we both just said, just reach out. But thanks everyone.
All right. Thanks, Chance. See you later.
And we are not live anymore.
Nice.